Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Veronica Riera-Gilley, and we're here tonight for another Embracing Mortality conversation. And I'm really honored to have Dr. Jenna Clack as our guest this evening. And she's an amazing human being and quantum business coach and holistic hormone guru, anti-aging, regenerative medicine. I'm sure I'm going to leave something off. I have notes here, but I'm just too excited to read them. So I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself and the amazing things that you're doing to help people grow and live their best lives.
So thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I often feel the same way about what I am doing because I started a long time ago in bioidentical hormones and most definitely have a lot of interest in epigenetics and specialized in anti-aging, regenerative, functional medicine. And really what we're doing is helping guide people in a direction to help their neuroendocrine system create a new reality, an optimal reality for their lifestyle in each moment. And that, spans a lot of things with our purpose, our alignment with our purpose, how we're living our lives. And we, often talk about lifestyle medicine as food, exercise, and, two other things that whoever's teaching you is interested in. And really what we want to do is bring everything together and make this really practical, where it all begins as the way we feel and the thoughts that we choose to think. And those are all being fed into by our lifestyle. So what we're really doing here is drawing all that together to create a quantum reality, a measurable reality that is grounded in self and is also something that the self can be really aligned with, doesn't feel a lot of unease with, feels very at ease with, and creating that step by step. It's super fun. I think making the process fun is like the biggest part of it, because when you're doing something that's not fun, it doesn't seem worth it to do it. And what we've learned from hormonal responses is that the more fun you're having, the more relaxed you are, the more blissful you feel, the more involved and worth it life feels, the more healthy and the longer your life will be. So that's what I do. And we've been really, over the last couple of years, my whole family and myself have been practicing this in a lot of new ways to embrace the unknown and really step into our bliss. But long story short, hormonal expert that loves life and vitality and seeks to increase that a lot of times through business, because that's just my mode of operation and always has been in creating businesses.
Very good. So you guys are in Costa Rica. You've been there for a couple of years now, and tell us about how your work has evolved and what you are learning while you're there.
Well, it's interesting that this is the topic of conversation for your purpose, which I find so important to be talking about, how our life and the natural progress that life takes into death is tied into the whole story. I remember sitting in my consulting office in Texas, and doing really well and having lots of successes and really a dream life from what I had thought was going to be built, and making big impacts in people's lives through natural holistic medicine, and using bioidentical hormones and using really a lot of the same stuff of changing our story and creating a more fun reality. Yet I was sitting in my chair every day, typing all those charts and listening to all the stories, and having, my kids dropped off at school and picked up afterwards, and having that 2 hours at home to get all of the good stuff, the healthy meals, the exercise, to do all this stuff was just, at some point, I remember sitting in my chair and thinking, I'm going to die here saving everyone. And that's what really started the journey. And when we first moved, we had intended to, and had everything lined out to return quarterly, keep the pharmacy, go back and forth. And we were just seeking something that I had found in consultation, that about halfway through an hour, the client, the patient, would start to find this space within themselves based on what we had built there in that room, speaking about what's going on with the messages in their body and what they're experiencing in life and how that reflects on lab work. And they would just get this moment of clarity, this space that they would start to unravel, and they would start to do the healing, which is really the only way that healing can occur, is within the person. And it was just such a short amount. And then they went back into the world, and I saw them 2 weeks later, and we started over again. We made another little step. And so the initial thought was to create more space, to find a place to create that inner space reflected. And I'd done lots of studies on blue zones and on oxytocin and on vibration. And so Costa Rica seemed very logical for us to be able to expand. And a lot of changes happened in the past couple of years, which were completely unexpected, both directly related to healthcare system and unrelated to healthcare system and related to business, that had us being here full time. And then eventually, because of global events, pretty much stuck here without planning to have been in that situation. So another really big thing that we teach on with epigenetics and the way that that's, played forward is adaptability. So we got to be really adaptable, and our family got to practice all of the theories, all of the scientific theories, all of the background Jenna says that I had been doing with my patients in real time. So our family has, over the past 2 years, simplified and simplified and simplified, getting rid of almost all of our stuff. We, over the past year, have been traveling. We've been in 17 different locations in Costa Rica over the past 2 years. And we've really found a grounding in unity in those simple things that I would always tell people about, but had never experienced completely for myself, as far as creating space and enjoyment, being in nature, really leaning on one another and nothing else, really not looking at the outside world for the stability that it definitely cannot provide, even though it promises that it can, and finding a more pure and simple life of just being together and enjoying our time and space. And all of us have, not miraculously, day by day, moment by moment, become a lot more joyful, appreciative, and by merit of that, healthy. I also have had an opportunity to decide how to give this gift to the world outside of the structure that we had already set up with, the pharmacy kind of setup, and have been able to work this online. And as I started with functional spirit science, helping people just understand how to connect with their body. Actually, before that, holistic hormone help for the healthcare provider was one of the first things I did. Woo woo. And then
I'm the first graduate of that class.
Yeah, yes. You're one of the 2 first graduates, seriously. And everything that y'all, here I'm still, my text is coming out. Everything that y'all are doing is so miraculous. And it really inspired me to keep this theme going, to teach these overarching themes of really trusting in a spiritual life to connect to your physical body. And that's really where it comes in, is to see ourselves as the whole, to lessen the amount of separation and definition and division that we have, and to allow those natural processes of our hormones to work optimally through connection. So then we moved to functional spirit science, and through the first 3, I guess there's 3 classes there that graduated through functional spirit science, which is a 12-week program to use the spirit of the spirit that you have in a scientific manner to be functional, to get you into more of that feeling, right? And as those finished up, everyone was creating their own businesses. Everyone was quitting their jobs. Everyone was aligning with something new. Everyone was stepping into purpose. And I realized, looking back at all of these years of consultation, all of these years of, talking to people, that's always such a core thing, is that the contribution, the purpose, wanting to really align with the gifts that you have to give to the world is the basis of the vitality that we have. And
Yes.
so then stepped into a more intensive process where I get to say some of the words that I really believe in. And I get to talk about the theories that I really know to be true about directing your neuroendocrine system in whichever way works best for you. And that's quantum. And that's any possibility, any timeline that you would like to be on is available to you, and really allowing that to then not be guided by me, to be guided by the person. It's a one-on-one process, which has been extremely rewarding. If you've ever watched a flower bloom on like the time lapse, that's what it feels like to do this program, because each individual has such a unique way of expressing their purpose. And most of the time, it's just that we're in a programming that a lot of us are in a different type of programming and overarching the same cultural programming that hasn't allowed us to see all those timelines, that hasn't allowed us to really get the vision. And so what we do is we envision together and we draw out a process that then allows a natural flow into that state. And it's all intuitive, which is the highest science, which that's another thing that I think is really important for us to understand, is that your intuition is scientific and it is the highest science. It's beyond all of the words. I think earlier we were talking, you said, I just don't have the words to, and I was like, oh, those are the best feelings, right? The ones that are so big that we don't need to share in this way. We can share by our lives. So over the years, we've really been we've been practicing the preach. And the more that we see the rewards of that, the more that I feel the rewards of that, and that I see that it's truth, right? You never want to tell somebody it's the truth if you're not certain of it. And so I am so happy to say that, all quantum possibilities are there, and it is what we observe. And that if you feel like you're not observing it, or that you're stuck, or that you don't see it, it's not that it's not there, or that something's wrong with your vision. It's just that we want to remove some blockages, that we want to tell some new stories and create some new hormonal feedback, which is amazing that it all happened to tie in. I'm sure there was no greater work on that, that it ties in and allows us to really enjoy life. And the more we enjoy life, the more life we have and are able to give to others. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing. We've been Pura Vida, which is the simple life, and knowing that the only thing that really matters is the connections we make and the energies that we are able to experience and feel. And everything else is just a display of that. So, yeah, we've been doing that, practicing it, and we are still living in the unknown and seeing what comes the next day, which is a great, great adventure. So that's what we're doing right now, envisioning new quantum possibilities for those who feel aligned and want to go on the fast track to the next level of their dream. It's been a blast.
That's so amazing that you're able to coach not only patients but professionals in how to cultivate this new way of being in the world, and how to break free from some of these cultural programming and find our own way, and not be tied into fear and locked into someone else's way of being. And I just think that's such a powerful message to share, that we can create a new reality, and that we can make different choices.
Well,
And
and
we
as
always
healthcare
have choices.
providers, like that, to me, it made me really excited too, because it's such a quicker impact to reach to the person who's then reaching to 1,000 people, right? To say that if you believe in something new, if you believe in a better reality, if you believe in using the same systems, the sciences are still there. So it's really just becoming familiar with the words that align, the theories that align, and sharing those, like, fills my heart. I never would have thought possibility. And that's exactly what we teach now, is that even the things that you think are not a possibility, when you believe in them, when where two or more are gathered, there is the spirit. So it's allowing that healing to be delivered in a larger pattern. And it's such a blessing to even be a part of, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And it's so good to be sharing the power so that someone can take steps, that they're not having to depend on someone else to help someone discover their own power for moving forward and healing. And yeah, I think that's the most exciting thing to be sharing with people, is that they have so much more power than they previously thought. And the world doesn't want us to know that we have all of this amazing power within us. And it's a force for good when we choose to use it.
Yes, yes. And it sometimes feels, I mean, I know throughout my life when I started doing this, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already the weirdo. Like I already feel that way. And what's interesting is that's the story, right? Like I realized most of us are the weirdo. Most of us have that within us that wants to share the deep ideas that aren't normal. And what's normal isn't working. So it's time to be empowered in the new ideas and the things that haven't happened yet, and to allow those things to really heal. And I love what you're saying about, it's so true, giving power to each person, because I can't change your mood. And your mood is one of the biggest epigenetic factors that we could ever touch. And it changes every 4 to 7 seconds. And allowing each person to understand how big of an impact that has, and that they have the power on that, and then to allow you to move things around in your world without needing to explain it, just to say, this makes me feel better. This makes me feel better. It seems so simple. It makes it so much better when you have the science behind it, so that we can be like, okay, I'm allowed to feel better, right? Because like I said, I've done this forever. And to some extent, I've always, I've never not practiced the preach. I've always been doing it. And until there was this moment of, fall off, where it felt like literally like everything crumbled. And it was a moment of, are you going to jump out of the plane, or are you going to stay in? And choosing to jump and to not know what's going to happen next. I would like to just encourage anyone who's listening right now, and to understand that the unknown is always better. It's never worse. It's always better. The next thing, because you wouldn't have been driven to make that choice unless you were inspired and in spirit. And so when you go into that unknown, it's always better. Just so interesting, the fear that we have around not knowing, and how comfortable we feel with the same things. And it's beautiful to be able to look back at all of this history and to see that it's very true, and that the truth is so easy. Like when you finally discover how blessed we are, that the answer is more goodness and not more struggle and suffering. There's endless possibility for what that means for each person, and endless goodness that gets to come into this world when we expand that. And as healthcare providers, for us to be able to say, okay, scientifically, we know that your physical body, your physical reality is changed by above genetics. Epigenetics is above genetics. So you can learn to use the machinery in a way that's most beneficial to you. And it gets to be fun to know more and more about it, and to focus that inward, and then to understand how focusing inward, and to get rid of that fear within yourself, to not ever get rid of. That's the goal, right? That's our driving force, is just to push out that with more and more love and more excitement, to where there's just no room for fear. How that literally overflows onto those around us, and we're healing our communities through that, instead of trying so hard to fix all the problems and focusing on the problems, which then makes them bigger. So yeah, it's been a little bizarre. I'm going to be real with you. It's been a little bizarre, and I want to express that, because it does feel bizarre, and so worth it. So beautiful. to kind of get some of that out of the way and really live our lives. The truth is, my husband, firefighter, paramedic, all that time while we were there, the truth is that things happen every day and we can't predict what's happening in the grand scheme of things. And being fearful of what might happen only steals the moment that you have. And I think that we don't realize, and really overarchingly over all of the time, fear is the stress, and the stress is killing us. And we can choose something different. That seems so straightforward, simple, and then living it compassionately, it's a lot more than that on an individual basis. And having the relationships, the connections and discussions to slowly move up that chart of emotion, that chart of understanding, is where we can really be of, in my opinion, some of the grandest benefit as healthcare providers, is just to understand that for ourselves. Because if you don't understand it for yourself, it's very hard to deliver the message to someone else.
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of something that you told me in one of our discussions while we were doing holistic hormone lectures together. And you said something about you're afraid of dying if you're not living. That's the reason that you fear dying, is because you're not really living. So can you expand on that? And I think you said it much better. But
I think it's an Osho quote. So it's a quote, which is why it was said much. And I'm going to do the best that I can to say it the way that he had. The only cause for being afraid of death is that you're not living rightly. So if you're living 100%, as you say you are, in line with your values, you feel blissful, you feel excited, there's no room for being afraid of death, because you're experiencing each moment so fully. And when we are afraid of death, it's because we feel like there's something more that we want to do. We haven't completed, an emotion, really, usually, an alignment of thought. We haven't stood up for ourselves. We haven't lived in the alignment that we know is best for us. So we're afraid to have it shortcut before it's finished. When you're living in complete release, complete let go, and you don't have that fear of death. And what's really interesting is it correlates a lot to the ability to have an orgasm. And people who have extreme orgasm anxiety are also really afraid of death and dying, and have a lot of that stress. And it's an inability to let go of control. And it's an illusion of you controlling anything and feeling responsible, feeling guilt, shame, feeling stress. And so those things also give a fear of death, because you feel like you haven't fulfilled your purpose, that you haven't really lived. So you're afraid of dying before you've lived. Otherwise, death is just a part of life. And we can understand that when we're living fully. And we understand that I'm going to die one day, and I don't know when that day is going to be, and I don't know how it's going to happen. And that's totally okay, because today I'm living, I'm alive, I am fully here. It's when we're waiting until, the culture that I saw growing up, my grandmother was a hospice nurse, and I saw this really commonly. My uncle was a pharmacist in our town, of this planning. And then as I got into the healthcare field and thought it was completely different and saw the same, it's this planning to die. And it's planning these activities. So it's this false sense of control over, I have this much time and these many years, and I'm fearful to not be complete because I'm not doing what I really want to do right now. I'm convincing myself of what I must do. And so now I have this false sense of control over my life, and I feel responsible for if I live or die. It's my fault if this happens or doesn't happen. And it's making ourselves really bigger than we are, as far as like an ego self and holding on control. And what's interesting is that's really supported by cultural norms. That's really supported because it helps keep everybody in a system and keep everybody in something predictable. The universe is not predictable. The universe is chaotic. And yes, there's a pattern in the chaos, but it's so much bigger than we can understand. So the fear of dying is a sign. If you were feeling afraid to die, which is very prevalent right now, it's the world is caught in a beautiful web of fear, and we can pull out of it, but it's sticky. It does have some stickiness to pull out. And as long as we're in that web of fear, we can guarantee that we're doing things daily in our lives that we don't really want to do, that we don't really believe in, that we don't really align with, and we're not really living in our full joy and bliss, or you're not afraid to die. It's a beautiful spiritual theory that I feel like can be a little bit in your face and is definitely at the core of things. Very true. Very true. Weird.
Did you
Just to
ever
think about, like, if I died right now, okay, it's been so good, it's been so good. I can think of other times in my life where if I would have died suddenly or something happened, I would have felt like I needed to come back and haunt someone because I had some shit to finish. Like, watch out.
That is interesting to think about. And I have thought the same thing myself. If something had happened to me at some other point in my life, it wouldn't have felt okay to leave at that time. And I feel like now, even though I might want to choose to say, see my children grow into old age or something, but if I were to leave right now, I feel good about the legacy that I'm leaving and the way that I've done everything to this point. So.
And then to get really weird on you, the way that your spirit transforms, because we're never alive or dead the way that we're seeing it. That's just our representation, right? That's just right now in this moment, because energy is not created or destroyed. It's just transformed. So we're just being transformed. And so when you're in an alignment with your life, that if you were to transform, you would transform into a wavelength or a vibration or a pattern or a place that is not aligned with you, that doesn't feel good, that's not what you would choose. I feel like that's the same thing as saying, like, living your life rightly, you're not afraid of death, because when you're not, then you know that your transformation, your next energy set, where you're going to start and then in the next reaction, would not be ideal. And if you happen to be completely aligned and on the vibration that you love, and you're like going to be mixed into the next song, right? Like wherever your energy goes, that it would be a song you like.
I love it. I love that analogy.
I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. You're going to hear me in music for sure, a little wind, right? And when you can realize that your vibration as this being, as this incarnation of energy, however you want to say that, is enlightened, and you'll know you'll be in light as you pass through in the next transformation, that's comforting, and that feels less fearful.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So death is weird to think about like that. It's a lot to talk about, because I think a lot of times when we talk about death, we're more talking about the life that's left behind and the changes that are left behind when something leaves. We're not really talking about the death of that person, of you. Like, and when I think about if I were to die, the first thing I think about is like my children, my husband, my parents, my friends, the work that I've done. So I'm still thinking about the living. I'm not, right? Like, it's not about the death. It's about not being there for the living. And when we can become really at ease with the transformation of energy and the lack of separation that we have with one another, and to understand we really do live on, we just don't get to be egotistical and controlling about it.
Yeah.
It's a different feeling. It's a different feeling, and saying like, it's okay to let go of my control of my energy. Did we freeze? Did we freeze?
I can hear you, but you are frozen. Maybe it'll catch up in just a minute. We're back and you're on mute.
I love that it's talking about how we can't control where our energy is and when it's happening, and like great representation. We have no control over where that goes other than how you're feeling. And all of the anti-aging, regenerative medicine, functional medicine, all of the epigenetics, all of the quantum studies, everything that I've pulled together on this side of things is really just saying the same thing. It's saying, feel better, love more, have less fear wherever you can confront it, just move through the fear. Talking about death is the best thing we can do for death, to move through the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And it just creates a new place for you to be. It's not better or worse, it's a choice. And so you get to choose for yourself where you get to be. And I think that choosing where your energy is as you pass over into the next space, whatever that feels like for you, whatever transformation that feels like for you, is the biggest actual charge over what we're able to do with our lives, over all of the stuff we think we're controlling in this physical reality. Being able to feel at ease and not be fearful of death, and to understand death as a natural part of life, and to understand that that's what's happening when we lose those near us, and to really be able to incorporate that into a truth for us, is the closest thing that we have to feeling steady and secure.
I really love the language that you put around the dying process as a transformation of energy, and thinking about how you want that energy to transition, that we could make choices to be in a more positive vibration and a higher level of energy when we pass. Like, what an amazing idea. I hadn't put it into those words yet. I think that's where my heart feels it, in having these conversations. But what a beautiful thing to give someone a peaceful death that would give them a higher vibration in passing. Like, yeah, wow.
Well, that's a gift to all of us. I think that's
Yeah.
so beautiful. It's a gift to all of us to have that energy not be in terror or fear or regret, because that energy is transformed, and those elements are used to create whatever comes next. And we see the world we're creating. It's really important. We pay so much attention to raising children and what to say and how to do it and blah, 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 and what music, and so many little things that we've paid attention to. And although there are things in place for death and dying, a lot of it is more on making it easier, making it less of a problem for the people around, making it more comfortable. And I would love to see that continue to shift into more of at ease and peaceful and blissful and appreciative and grateful, and those types of descriptions that are really close, and that we can reach for, so that that energy is then what gets transferred into whatever is next for our world. I've done a lot of energy work here, have had some medicine journeys, have had some deep energy work, and it's very, very clear that we are all one, and that all of these energies are connected. And being able to find a gratefulness, we know that gratefulness is the source of abundance. So being able to find a gratefulness in death, I feel would be a great gift to transform into a more abundant, a more blissful representation of life.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. How cool is this puzzle though? I think that's like, I'm always amazed that, like I said, the unknown is always more fun. The unknown is always this discovery of something more beautiful. It's never, even if it hurts, right? Like even if there are painful parts, because death is still a lot. It's still heavy. It's still a huge change in what's happening. And it's a huge transformation of energy. It feels disruptive. It feels like something big is moving. And to be able to be appreciative of that creative force and to be appreciative of the energies that have been expended over all of the lifetime of this, entity, gives us such a bigger gift than, sometimes when something completely goes away, you think, well, I wish I never had it, right? Like it hurts so much to lose something that you thought was there. And instead of having that even there, is to understand you can't ever lose it, that it's always there, and that we can always be grateful for every interaction that we've had in life. And I remember, I don't know why this is coming to me, it doesn't really matter. I was driving home from when I was living in Kerrville, driving to Midland, so like a 4-hour drive. My son was with me. He asked if he could stay with his grandparents. I didn't want him to, but I was like, okay, after a couple of hours of, I want to sleep over at Nana's house, fine, that's good. And I go back home, and on the way I have an amazingly horrible wreck where I basically go across a lane of the highway into a tree, broke through a barbed wire fence. The tree crumbled around me. I passed out. I woke up with glass in my face. I had already had a broken foot, so I was having a hard time getting out of the car, and the tree, as a mesquite tree, had broken around me. So I crawled out of the window, and I thought I was dead. But I remember right before the accident happened, I saw myself like going, the cruise control got stuck and I couldn't get it off. And so I was going 70 miles an hour across the other lane. And I just remember saying, radio edit, fuck, well, it's been good. Thank you. And that's the sentiment that after I realized I was alive, I felt even more grateful. Because shit, it's been good, like life has been so beautiful every single moment. And, sometimes as healthcare providers, we'll help one person that's really great, turn a life around. We'll say, if I only help that one person. And that's kind of how I was feeling about life, is like, if this is all I have, I'm so grateful. And since I've been given anything more, I want to make sure I live really, really grateful for every day and really in love with every moment and not take it for granted. And when you live like that, that kind of dissipates the ability to have fear that I might not be here.
I'm reminded of something that we talked about when we were having tacos and beer in Midland. The first time we ever met, we talked about how if there's no death, there's no room for new ideas and new people and new, just a wellspring of something new, that it's part of the cycle of life, and it makes space for new growth and new things. And I remember that was just a really beautiful piece of the conversation.
Space. Like I didn't even realize how direct that is to what was going on at that time. I'm so glad to remember that. I remember when like I can be reminded of, I guess is the way I would say. That's creating space. It's literally creating space. And the most beautiful thing in the entire world is empty space. because it's unbound creation and it can be anything. And I think that's where it helps me to think about how important it is to live our lives fully as the biggest contribution we can make, so that we can give the highest vibration of space creation, so that we can give the highest ability to create space in a peaceful place by living through that now. So I'm going to say something that I hadn't really talked too much about, and I'm going to be as emotional or non-emotional as it happens to be. My grandfather, when we said we were coming to Costa Rica and doing this, we got mostly warnings, mostly don't do it, mostly you're crazies. And when we told my grandfather, who my grandpa was just the best, just he could stand next to you and you were confident, like didn't know why you immediately felt like you could do anything, but he was just standing near you and you knew you had it. And I told him about what we had planned to do, and he was so excited, like so excited. He was like, that's so great. I'm so happy for you guys. And he actually said, well, my knees are bad, but I'm gonna find a way to get down there. And he died that night. He fell and hit his head, and told my aunts at the time to leave, to go to get him something or whatever. And I 100% believe that he might not have known exactly, and he knew, and he's been here in Costa Rica with us. He's been in the air, he's been in the ocean, he's been everywhere with us. And I can hear him and I can feel him standing next to me, and I'm confident, like I had always been when he was standing next to me. So the transformations of energies are beautiful. And at his funeral, everyone was telling me how sorry they were and how sad it was. And I grew up with my grandparents who talked about death a lot. My grandpa's an engineer, my grandmother's a hospice nurse. So we talked about this energetic stuff a lot. And I just remember having a really hard time because I couldn't pretend to be sad. I didn't want to pretend to be sad. I wasn't sad. I knew that his energy was doing so much more, that he had spent his whole life living so true to himself, so true to himself, that would drive some around mad and make some ecstatic, like that strong truth of this is the way I see things, and I'm never going to, like, he's just so much love. And he would always say, well, you can't worry about little things. And everything was a little thing. Like, it didn't matter. Everything was a little thing. And so I feel like that example happening right before all this happened really helped for my person, my understanding, to have a grip on how beautiful life and death as a part of life is. It's not separate. It's exactly, it gives it's the period or exclamation point or question mark if you choose, right? Like it's the punctuation on a great creation. Yeah. It's pretty amazing to understand that we really are eternal, and that just because I don't get to call myself Jenna and wear a dress, that I'm not any less of magical energy,
And I can so relate to that story of your grandfather passing, because I felt the same way when mine passed. Like, it was hard to be sad because I knew he was released onto something better. And I have moments when I miss him, but I'm not sad that he's gone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and to accept that feeling, because usually when we have that deep, like when we're crying about it, oh, it's so sad. No, it's just deep. It's don't name it for me, please. I think that was my big thing about the way that the death and dying process is that it's set up to be fearful. It's set up to be, oh, this is the end, and this YOLO, like you only have this one. And the truth is that every day is a new life, every moment's a new life, every interaction. And so every time that you ever had an interaction with your grandfather, you have, like, you're not, it's not sadness. It's something so much deeper than that. It's like a gratefulness that recognizes the distance, maybe something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Hmm.
This is what it's about. This is what life is about. And it's difficult to talk about life without talking about death, if we want to be complete.
Oh, that just brought up another story for me. One of my dogs passed away suddenly. She just collapsed and died. And I just collapsed on the floor and, was holding her body. And I was like, oh my gosh, my husband didn't even know she'd passed. I mean, that she, like, he was putting the kids to bed. I was coming home from work, come in and find my dog like this. So I'm just, on the floor, I'm a heap of tears. And my son comes in, just matter of fact. And he was like, Mom, why are you crying? Like, how can you be sad? Lindy's soul has gone to heaven. And now she's with Miss Sally. And he can go visit she can go visit Miss Sally in heaven. Miss Sally was one of my yoga students who had recently passed away. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what a beautiful, like, full circle moment for my son to be like, Mom, don't be so sad. Lindy's having a party with Miss Sally.
That's so true. Dude, this just connected big time quantum for me. Like, when he said that reality exists because he believes in it. So, like, because we can think something so great, because we can create that, we actually, somewhere, they're literally doing that. That's happening. That's the best. And the opposite is true. If we think that it's horrible and that the world is ending, blah, then we create that. And to think that we have that much power and take responsibility in the moment, to know that the children have it right, to ask how they see it. They see so much more clearly.
Yes, they do.
It's so interesting because the first thing that you want to say is, I am so sorry for your loss. And I would love to find some new wording, some new patterning to say, like, I am so grateful that you had that relationship and that you always carry it with you.
Oh, that's good. I agree that we don't yet in our language have a consistent way to express your deep feelings of understanding and knowing what someone's going through. I mean, like, yeah, I struggle with, just slapping on, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm still learning to find better language around it, but I love that. I'm so grateful you had this beautiful person in your life and this relationship to look back on. That's such a great way to put it.
Well, I believe that we're shifting and understanding it more. I do believe that, I really do believe that in our lifetime, due to not the fact that we're having these conversations, but due to the fact that these conversations are already here, that they've already been created and we're allowing them to happen, that we will have a more healthy death and dying process as we move forward. That as we, in the future, when people are doing their energy work and they're going to be like, oh, wow, you've had like 5 peaceful deaths. You've had no traumatic deaths in your past. That's amazing. I'm very, very beyond hopeful and very certain that there's so much goodness and love. And I know that if I'm feeling it, then it is of the world. That's something to be really certain of, that we can learn to treasure our mortality and to be at peace with the depth of impermanence. It's like going to the beach and there being that one time when the tide is perfect and enjoying, like going at that time, right? Like enjoying that time because you know that's the time where you can swim and you can run on the shore, blah, blah, blah. And then when you're not at the beach, it's not like the beach went away or something wrong with the beach because the tide is here or there. There's nothing wrong with the situation because it doesn't look in that specific moment for you. And then the impermanence that it's not always at that level, to where it's not always where you can enjoy it fully, but it's not that it's not there or that it's not available to you. It's just not as evident or as apparent or as simple as it had been. And I think that, yeah, it's just the way the world has shown us that it works best is in a cycle. Like you're saying, like when someone passes, it makes room for something new. It makes room for evolution. We are evolving. And so beautiful to see science and spirituality starting to really, they've always been integrating, and to watch them integrate more and more, and to see as we move down this line of time or whatever it is, that we're actually becoming less divided and less separated and more integrated. And wow, I just like in my head could not stop hearing ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Like, yeah, of course, this is, we're in a cycle of having a point in space to enrich what elements are within our body, however we want to reorganize, Tetris them. I imagine epigenetics is like amazing Tetris game where it's like like you're just lining things up next level. And it's fun. It's a game that we get to play, and I'm super blessed to have a friend that understands how important talking about death is. Because I remember when we first started talking, we were like, yeah, it's a little weird. And now it's not, dude, it's not weird at all. It's such a service to be able to not have fear around it, and just like, just we're talking about wellness and quantum realities and all of that, to be able to experience that for yourself, to be able to go through that in a way that transforms the energy around those words, that transforms the energy around those feelings and experiences, and then be able to, by osmosis, by like just being here, pass it on to the world and be able to share that with those around you. And that's miraculous, honestly, V. Like, that's miraculous. Just putting it out there.
So we're helping people create a quantum reality of healthy dying.
Yes. Healthy living and healthy dying are not separate. Most definitely not separate. I think one thing I really remember about being in the rooms with so many people as they were passing as a young kid, because I ran with my grandmother when she was on call. She was on call for hospice and had been there for a long time, so she got a lot of the end calls. Of course, that's how it works. And I just remember the difference in the way the room felt, the difference in the energy, because as a child, I didn't really understand all of every, right? I could tell the difference in the energy of someone who was afraid and didn't want to go, and someone who was at peace and was ready to pass. And the entire environment is changed. And that's not changed just when you die. It's not like when you're in the death situation, all of those attitudes and energies change. That's every single day. That's every single moment that you're choosing. And it's hard to sometimes align what that is. I love that Osho put it together for us. It's like, am I living rightly? Am I living the life that makes me feel alive? Am I living in my alignment? And if so, then my energy is at ease. And if my energy is not at ease, it doesn't want to be over because it's still trying to straighten itself out.
And when we have it together, I think it's a gift to those around us that that peacefulness that they have surrounding their death emanates to us, and it gives us peace, or more peace about their passing, because we know and we can feel that they were ready, and that feels good. Like you said, it feels completely different, and it's a gift when your loved ones are ready to go and share their wishes with you about how they want to go once they reach that point where they can no longer speak for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful gift to be able to give. And then to also understand as healthcare providers or friends or family members, wherever we are, to take that as an opportunity to be in more alignment with ourselves, to say, was I fearful about this death? Do I feel like this has changed me? Right? So that you can have that opportunity to let that gift be full, to be able to give it back, to say, where can I live more fully? Since
Mhm.
I've seen this, where can I live more fully?
Yes. Yes. And I feel like that's the gift my grandmother gave me. And that's where all of this started, was she gave us that gift. And I mean, I felt the universe give me a nice little nudge and say, go share it. This is a good gift and it needs to be shared.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you have. I know that it's brought our interactions and friendship and professional relationship and interaction in any way deeper, to it's not just share, it's to interact, to collide, like to really integrate, um and to dissolve any of the unnecessary stuff, so that when we have a discussion, an interaction, a project, anything that's going forward, that it really is the stuff of light, the stuff of love.
The word nuclear chain reaction just came up for me.
Oh, yes, yes. Yes, exactly. Wave science, right? Ripples. It's like, it's the stuff of the universe. And to say, look, I don't understand it and it doesn't suck. Like, I don't get it all. And I know that there's something bigger that is good here. That is not, grieving is not a negative thing. I think we talked about grieving little deaths, grieving little things that are over. And I'm laughing because now I can, of course, hear myself saying that an orgasm is la petite, where the small death. And it's like, sometimes you don't want sex to be over. And the orgasm's awesome. It's like the point, and it's also like not the point, because I also want that to keep going. Right. And so then to realize you're going to do it again. Like, it's fine. Go ahead and enjoy yourself all the way. Let it go and know that you're eternal, and know that that spirit is never going anywhere. And that allows you to not hold off and not finish it up because you don't want it to be over. And I think a lot of the time is like that. Like, I just don't want it to be over. Then you never get to experience the true bliss, the true ecstasy, the true stuff of life, which is in the death, is in the end, is in the losing of something. I lost a lot of my whole identity over the past 2 years. And to say, I feel like I died as a person and I'm a new person, like, in an extreme way. Spent most of my life being a pharmacist, right? And had a pharmacy and a compounding pharmacy. And this is since 20 years, and realizing that honoring those little losses in our lives is not petty. It helps us practice for when we're losing things that seem more energetically charged, that seem more big. If that makes sense.
It does.
Well, I appreciate you a lot for that. I had never and all of my life and death and all of the deep talks that I hadn't realized those little losses are worth feeling deeply about and practicing grieving, which is not a negative thing. It's not a burden on anyone to grieve. And I've always felt like previously that grieving is a burden. And that's a lot of times because we associate it with the sadness and with the, instead of saying like, I cried 3 days in bed when my grandmother passed. And I don't think I was really sad. I think I was just shocked and had so many emotions that didn't have words and wanted space, right? And that created the space and the opportunity for new things. I think the practice is really, really helpful so that we can shift when we want to our perspective and look at what beauty can come out of it. And then it builds a beautiful world. We didn't know what was going to happen in this discussion. And I've got like through crying and like ecstasy and like all of these beautiful emotions in the unknown of, a lot of times that's what we say is like the death is because it's unknown. You don't really know what happens after death, right? Like we don't really know what happens to the me, and to be able to let go of the me, to let go of the ego self, to let go of like me needing to be in control is what helps us live more fully and what helps have a more peaceful death. So that kind of helps to tie into that practice of like not being too attached to anything here on this physical realm, which is just the physical realm. It's just this layer, right? There's so much more.
And I think understanding that has helped me be okay with the unknowns, is knowing that we're in this dimension that doesn't have as much room. It's a little bit constricting, and to know that there's a bigger understanding beyond that. And it's okay if I don't have all the understanding or have all the pieces here, that there's expansion and growth. And that has helped me be okay with the things that I just can't grasp and I don't know. And that also takes away some of the fear, is that we get more knowledge later. We don't know what it looks like or what that is, but we do get more knowledge later. And we have to be willing to let go of what's here to get that other knowledge on the other side of death.
Dude, like having a baby, and I was 21, my first, and looking at my belly and thinking about delivering the baby and being like, no, how does this work? Like, there's no way this is going to work. How is this going to work? I don't know how this is I can't do this. And my mom told me, she said, Jenna, when the time comes, God's going to take over. You're not going to need to know anything. You'll be given all that you need to know in the moment. And that was true then. And it's been true every other time. And to think about how restrictive the first genetics studies were, that basically were like, we know it all. This is what you are. This is what you're not. This is how we can modify you. This is this simple piece of machinery that is, complicated enough that only I can understand it. And that this is the box. And then to be so enriched, enlightened, and relieved by epigenetics, which is, way more than what we were thinking was just 70%. Now it's like 75, 80%. It's like most of what's happening is above genetics, which is where we lose the place of light and sound. So the things we're hearing, the things we're seeing, what's being tied back into us is so much more important. And to know we don't know. And if you look at how we've been discovering, we know we'll know more. And what makes life worth it is discovery and something new. When you think about what really gets you excited, it's always something different, something to discover, something to unwrap.
Learning something new.
Otherwise, meh. meh, it's okay. It's all right. I'm grateful for everything. And what gets us excited as entities is, dude, as a dog sniffing around and getting really excited for a new smell is that new thing. So my mom used to say when I was a kid, how boring would it be if you already had everything you ever wanted? How boring would it be if you knew like that would be scary. That would be scary. Not knowing is exciting. Not knowing is an adventure that you create. Not knowing is the canvas, the blank canvas. And to have a certainty is death. So that is our certainty. If there's no other certainty.
That one hits hard in my healthcare provider part of me, because when I was certain is when I saw the most potential to harm the patient, when I couldn't see their individual differences and their preferences because it was my way or the highway. And getting over that ego as a healthcare professional and being able to say, I don't know it all. And we're going to look at the whole picture. And even though conventional wisdom or textbook wisdom says we need to do it this way, I'm going to listen to you as the whole person, and we're going to look and find out what's the best for you. And that certainty was the roadblock, and the disconnection and the potential to harm the patient, I feel like.
Well, yeah. And to be fair, that's what we're trained to hang our ego on, what we're trained to hang, and ego, we'll just say a nicer word, identity, right? As we're put through a system of learning that unfortunately relies on convincing you that that's the way that it is. And it was only the way that it was at this one time, in this one season, in this one place, and it could work. And to be more honest about our education as scientists and philosophers and as participants in the wellness provision, instead of authorities.
Yes.
That's a huge, just that shift has served so many. How cool. How cool that a talk about death is like everything, and that's the truth. Creating the highest quantum reality every single moment, creating the highest peaceful perspective to spread and to share and to allow that to be, because as long as we don't put up all of those certainties and boxes and if this, then that, then anything's possible.
That's awesome. Anything is possible. I love it.
It's true. But now I'm singing, anything's possible, but nothing's for show.
Still true.
Musicians are the deepest. I can't even with it. I mean, I'm a preserver of the hip hop arts. That's just one facet of all of the ways that we can hear or reflect or see, experience, feel the truths. And when you feel the truth, you know it. That's the ultimate. And really, when you feel the truth and align with that feeling is when you can feel the fear fall away, or you can feel that acceptance come into place.
So good. Well, can you think of anything else that you wanted to discuss today?
I would just like to encourage each and every soul to understand that the biggest dream that you have, that the most unreal, amazing, most fun lifestyle that you can imagine is for you. or you wouldn't have thought it, you wouldn't have felt it. And that you don't have to know how, you just have to stop trusting in the certainties of the way it must be done that
Mm.
others have drawn, because they didn't see what you saw and you don't see what they see. So just allowing yourself to align as much as possible with your true joy, with your true bliss, and just practice a little bit at a time. And one day you'll be all the way there without you. It's today, right? The quantum leap, it can happen so quickly. And I can say that with complete certainty, because even now I still have more visions now. And I never would have understood all the little things I thought as a child that I would like to do and like to be and like to experience would be my life path. And while I was attempting to do everything and was doing everything the right way, and following all of the guidelines and doing everything just so, it didn't allow the space for the other stuff to come in. And it's a practice. It's just a practice to not doubt yourself, to trust your intuition. And everyone has the ability and the magic to deny the world, deny the physicality of the world, and trust your vision and align more into the highest quantum timeline that's for you. And that's the beauty of life. And let your energy transform how it will. I promise that it only gets better. And I would just encourage every single person to find one little way to open yourself up for more joy, for more bliss, and to allow yourself to live outside of this physical world and the spiritual world, and let the physical world follow. Then you're already living there. Then when you die, it's just like, I've already been here. It's fine. Everyone knows me already. It's good.
I love it. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I am so grateful that you spent the afternoon chatting with me and airing it all out and sharing the goodness.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me. I think I was excited to be able to do this. We've had a lot of really nice, candid conversations over the years of starting to meet at the taco place, which is hilarious. I love that we met like that. The unknown, right? Look what great things the unknown brings you.
Yeah, crazy random person on Facebook says, "Hey, let's go have tacos. I don't know you, but I'll meet you in Texas."
What's funny is that I think you still have the same little taco thing. I was like, somebody's like, "Do you know her?" I was like, "I don't even know what she really looks like," because her little circle says something about tacos, which is what we're going to go to.
It's from my favorite taco shop in Springtown, Texas, that is now closed. Yeah, Taco About Love. That's my profile.
So someone out here has the quantum idea to open a taco shop, and they just got the go ahead. They were like, "Yep, there's a space in the universe for a new taco shop."
Please call it Taco About Love.
What's it called? Taco About Love?
Taco About Love was just a mural that they had painted on the taco shop, but it was Casita Sol was the name of the taco shop.
So, but that would be a good name for a taco place.
It would.
The whole thing. It's amazing. Dropping quantum ideas. Beautiful.
We just gave it. We put it out there into the universe. I expect to see it soon. Invite us to your grand opening.
Awesome. Well, and I guess I should. And if you want help developing things, visionaryintuitiveproductions.com. So
yes,
so that's what I do is visionary work.
Thank you for reminding me to tell people how they can find you, and if they want to work with you, where do they find you and all of your goodness?
Oh, I love you. Thank you. So primarily now we're working at visionaryintuitiveproductions.com. And that's what we're doing, is envisioning the intuitive production of whatever is going on. If that's aligning lifestyle, we work with CEOs and celebrities to make sure that our messages are shining lights, the way to move forward. And there's all levels of involvement there, starting for quantum branding. and also Espacio Sin Nombre, so the space with no name, espaciosinnombre.com. And we work with creating immersions of spirits in wellness. So we have events either private, and we've got some that are a little bit larger that we hope to host here now in Costa Rica and eventually internationally, more internationally. I guess it's already internationally from there. So espaciosinnombre.com and visionaryintuitiveproductions.com are where you can find my work. And of course, at JW1, JDUBYAONE on Instagram, being my hip hop self.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenna. And I look forward to the next time.
Of course. Thank you.